Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for our Preparing for Graduate School workshop. A couple things before we get started. If I could just ask for everyone to keep themselves muted throughout this presentation, that would be greatly appreciated just to minimize any background noise. If you have not already, if you could go onto the chat function and change your name to your full name, just so we can have count of who is here today, especially if you're part of the GPS program. That's how we're going to monitor attendance. So if you can make sure your full name is present in the chat. Okay, so let's get started. So my name is Jessica. I'm one of the graduate associates in the Office of Career Development. I also have Elisa here with me as well, who is our other graduate associate. And today we're going to be presenting on what to do when you're preparing for graduate school. So if you guys could use the chat function right now, I'm kind of curious if you guys could let us know, where are you right now in the process of applying for graduate school? Is this something you've already considered? Maybe you're contemplating you want to go to graduate school? Have you already been submitting applications? Where are you guys at in the process? Okay, awesome. We have 3 people considering and planning. Awesome. Awesome. So all of you guys are either planning to go to graduate school right now or you're considering it. So in the early stages, right? So we want to talk to you guys a little bit about what the process is like, what materials are needed, how do you consider what route to go when it comes to graduate school, and things like that. So if any point you guys have any questions that you want to have answered, please feel free to put them down in the chat. If we don't get to them while we're presenting, we will hold some time at the very end for a discussion Q&A. So we will make sure that you have your questions answered. There we go. Okay, so the first thing when it comes to looking at graduate school, you want to ask yourself some important questions, right? So for one, you want to ask yourself, why are you applying to grad school to begin with, right? Because this is going to be an important deciding factor in what school you decide to go to, or even what program you want to consider pursuing, right? You might consider wanting to pursue a degree that goes beyond your bachelor's, or maybe something entirely different, right? So when it comes to thinking about reasons why you want to go to grad school, some reasons that might come up, maybe you just want to learn more and become more educated in a certain area. Maybe you want to add this experience to your resume. It could be for a promotion at work. Maybe your employer is pushing for you to go to graduate school. It could be to increase your credibility in a certain field. Maybe you're looking to make a career change. Maybe you have some added pressure from peers, or maybe you just feel like, I don't know what the next best route is for me. Maybe I'll consider graduate school. It's really important to consider what are the reasons you're wanting to go to grad school, because this could be a deciding factor in your decision. You also want to ask yourself, why now? Why is now the good time for me to go to graduate school? And this can vary based on everybody's life circumstances, right? Maybe the next best time for you to go is right after your bachelor's degree. Maybe for you, it is taking a couple years off to gain some work experience and then going back to graduate school. It all depends on everybody's own timeline. You want to ask yourself too, what schools do you want to apply for and why? So when it comes to this question, think about what degree are you looking to seek and see if the schools that you're interested in offer that degree or program. You want to take into consideration the different geographic regions and maybe what schools are located within that location. Also, you want to look at what type of experience are you looking to gain in graduate school. Are you interested in a program that has more face-to-face interactions in the classroom, maybe more on-campus coursework that's required? Are you looking for something that has more of an online component that allows for flexibility as you are managing other obligations in your life? and considering two programs that are both part-time as well as full-time. These are all important questions to ask yourself when you're looking at different graduate programs, because different schools, different programs are going to have different characteristics.
So grad school admission requirements. The admission requirements will vary by whatever program you choose. The most common requirements are official transcripts, GRE scores, letters of recommendation, usually 2 to 3, personal statements, and sometimes on occasions you'll have an interview as well. You want to make sure that you're always researching the specific requirements of the programs you're thinking about applying to. And not only do you want to make sure you can fulfill other requirements, but you also need to consider that you will have to tailor all your applications to the specific program. So it's never too early to start planning. You want to begin with first narrowing down your interests and determining your field. So what is it that you're interested in? For example, if you're in psychology, there's different routes that you can take with that. You can do research, you can do counseling. So you have a lot of different options, and it's important to explore those. You also want to find an advisor at your school who can offer different perspectives on the various programs and degree paths. That'll give you a better idea as to what program best suits your needs. And if you're already in the workforce or out of school, you can talk to supervisors, mentors, or other colleagues that might already be in the field so they can offer you their perspectives on that field. And also visiting the program's websites, requesting brochures, and attending open houses so you can be as informed as you can be by the time that you apply to that program.
So continuing with planning, make sure you guys understand and learn the differences between a master's, a professional, and doctoral programs in your field, and be able to identify which of these paths is going to best align with either your timeline that you're in right now or your career goals. So I'll talk a little bit about my own experiences with this. So I'm actually in the master's program here in clinical psychology counseling practice. And part of the process that I kind of went through when I started looking at graduate schools, I was really focused on what can I do with a master's degree and what can I do with a doctoral degree in psychology. And as I was doing more research, my interest, I really knew that I wanted to work one-on-one with individuals. I knew I wanted to do counseling, therapy, and I also knew that I had an interest in wanting to teach. Not necessarily teaching at a university level, but maybe teaching at a community college or even a high school. So as I was starting to kind of do some more research on the field itself, I realized that a lot of what I wanted to do aligned with a master's degree. So it's really important to kind of understand what different programs allow you to do in terms of career perspectives, because this is really going to make a lot of sense once you're starting to look at programs. You want to make sure that you're utilizing your resources appropriately, right? So when it comes to researching specific schools, make sure that you consider factors like location, cost, the reputation of the school. Is it competitive? How many applicants do they typically admit into an academic year? A lot of graduate programs, they only offer maybe 5 or 6 spots if they're doctoral programs, with having over 500 applicants. So those are more competitive programs. And maybe considering whether the school is a public school or a private school, if that's also something that's of importance to you. Make sure that you explore the earning potential of each of your possible degree paths. So while it's important to consider maybe the different education that you want to acquire, also considering what resources are going to go into that education, and does that align with what your professional goals are. Also coming up with a timeline for taking the GRE. So as Elisa had mentioned, some schools do require GRE scores as part of their application. And there are specific days that the GRE is offered. That's something that you can inquire about on their website, but it's important to kind of keep that in mind too, that maybe if you don't test as highly as you want it, that you allow yourself enough time to be able to retake the examination so that you could use those updated scores on your applications. And also too, when it comes to considering whether you want to pursue a master's degree or a doctoral program, also keep in mind the amount of time that's required for each program as well, right? So there are some programs that if you have a bachelor's degree, they will consider applicants for doctoral programs and master's programs. But it also take into consideration the amount of time that's required too, right? So depending on programs, some master's programs can range anywhere from 2 to 3 years. Doctoral programs can range 5 to 7, depending if you have a master's degree when you're going into it, or if you're starting with only your bachelor's degree. So there's a lot to take into consideration when it comes to what program in graduate school is right for me. So preparation. So as I mentioned with the GRE, make sure you give yourself at least 3 months before your test date to study and prepare for this exam itself. So which means that you would have to look into advance on what days are available for you to take the test, what best aligns with your schedule, and then giving yourself time to prepare for that. So there are plenty of different options that are out there for studying for the GRE exam. I know a few of them. There's Kaplan that's out there. There's Princeton Review. There's online courses that you could also partake in if that's something that you feel maybe you need more guided assistance in preparing for this exam. The GRE is very similar to an ACT and SAT exam, except it's just used for graduate school programs. So the GRE consists of different analytical writing questions, verbal reasoning questions, and there is a quantitative reasoning section, also known as the math section. So these different study guides can help you review certain material that's on the test that's related to these questions. Just kind of gives you some points on different concepts that are addressed in the exam, provide you different questions and different approaches to answering questions. So maybe if you feel like you're not the best test taker, if you didn't do as well on an ACT, SAT back in high school that maybe you would have liked to, this is another way for you to prepare for the exam. And if anybody is considering other professional schools that are not graduate school, maybe like law school or any other programs that you might be considering that don't require the GRE, but maybe require the MCAT or the LSAT, there are different preparations that you could utilize for that as well. Just keeping in mind whatever program you decide to go into, more than likely there will be an examination that's required for admission. And then registering for FAFSA and start looking into private scholarship and grant applications. So just like undergraduate school, when you apply for FAFSA for financial aid, the same applies for graduate school too. If it's required from you and you need the assistance, always fill out FAFSA the year prior to when you plan on enrolling in school to make sure that you have the best chance in getting federal aid for your studies.
Another important factor that you want to consider when preparing to apply for graduate school is creating a calendar. You want to create a calendar of all the deadlines for all of the grad school programs that you're applying to. You want to make sure that you have all the documents ready by the time you have to submit them. And additionally, if you're planning to attend a tour or an open house or some other event on campus, you want to make sure that to add those to your calendar so you can attend and familiarize yourself with the school and their program. You also want to make sure that you include financial aid deadlines because those are very important too. And then you want to make sure that you have strong letters of recommendation. So you want to identify professors or individuals to write letters of recommendations. You want to make sure that you choose someone who will be able to speak positively about your character. So take your time to get to know your professors and reach out of them outside of class as well. You want to make sure that you request with plenty of time ahead before you have to submit them as well. So you can ensure that the professor will have enough time to complete it.
And kind of going off of the first point that Elisa had too, right? Identifying professors or individuals to write letters of recommendation. This is really why it's so important during your undergraduate to utilize professors' office hours to make those connections individually with professors, right? Because they're going to be more likely to write a stronger letter of recommendation for you, as opposed to if you were just a student in the classroom, maybe participated in discussions. If you took the time, that initiative to meet with them outside of classroom time, you're more likely to have a stronger letter of recommendation. So for those of you who are seriously considering graduate school, maybe utilizing that outside connections with professors right now while you can. If anybody is still going to be an undergraduate, I'm not sure if you guys are seniors, but if anybody is in the underclass and you're considering this, now would be a good time to start making those connections for down the line. So personal statement and other documents. So typically for a lot of the applications for graduate school, many schools do require a personal statement. Sometimes schools will provide you with a prompt, so make sure that you read that prompt carefully if one is given to you. Other personal statements may just ask you to write a little bit about yourself and why you want to enroll in the program, so almost similar to like a cover letter. So make sure when it comes to your personal statement that you're demonstrating your interest in that specific school. So as a cover letter is always different for each job application, you want to make sure that your personal statement is different for every graduate school application that you are applying to. So in your personal statement, you really want to focus on different either academic experiences that you've gained, maybe research experience you want to touch upon, anything that will bring attention to the school to consider you as an applicant, right? So you want to express why do they want you as one of their students. Typically, depending on programs, sometimes if you are focusing more on a research institution, especially if you're considering doctoral programs, a lot of the professors will specifically pick candidates that they want on their research team to work in their research lab. So going along with this, sometimes it helps if you seek out faculty in that school that you're looking to and see what kind of research that they're currently conducting. So a lot of times on colleges' websites, they will list on there the professors, what lab they work in, what their research consists of. And this is just one way that you can tailor your personal statement if research is the field that you want to go into. If it's not, then another way to kind of personalize your personal statement, right? Look on the college's website, see what their culture is like, see what their mission is like, and how would you fit into that based on the experiences that you've gained throughout your academia and throughout your work experience, and talk a little bit about your just interest and why are you currently wanting to pursue this field at this time. Make sure you're showing your professional personality. Again, notice the emphasis on professional. We don't want to go into any personal details about ourselves, really making sure that we're just focusing on our professional development. Make sure you don't go over the word or page limit. A lot of schools will put a limit that it can be no longer than 1 page. It can't be longer than 2 pages. I've seen some personal statements that have been as short as 250 words. So you really want to make sure that you go within that limit. Even though you might say, well, I'm only a few words off, or what's another, quarter of a page going to do? That's a clear indicator to the admissions team that, maybe this candidate can't follow directions. So that's an easy way to kind of get your personal statement, your whole application tossed out. So it's really important that you follow those little directions. Make sure that you answer questions or the prompt completely. Sometimes questions have more than one part to them. So make sure that you are writing it concisely, but also covering everything that you need to effectively answer the question. So, take some time too to kind of brainstorm what you would write about if you had to write a personal statement right at this moment. What experiences, what skills, what would you want an admissions team to kind of know about you, and what's going to make you shine out from other candidates? especially for programs that are so competitive, you really want to start thinking about, what does make me unique and why am I specifically interested in this field? What experiences have led me to this and why do I want to go now? So another component to the grad school application, do I include a resume? Do I include a CV? That's a common question. So most schools, most programs, though, they will require a CV. There are some that require a resume. So I kind of want to go over what the differences are between the two. So for a resumes, they're typically a summary of your skills, your work experiences, that are relevant to one specific position that you're wanting to apply for. A CV typically is longer than a resume. So resumes, we always say, should be about 1 page. CVs can be 2-3 pages. As you gain more experiences, you can elaborate through more pages. There's really no page limit to a CV. So a CV is a history of all your work experiences, all your educations. It includes detailed information about your academic, your professional work. So what's listed on the bottom there, so like scholarships that maybe you've earned, different trainings that you've undergone, workshops, any dissertations maybe you've written. If you've written an honors thesis, definitely include that on there. Research experiences, any publications, presentations. So this can be maybe if you presented with a professional organization and you went to one of their poster conferences, or maybe you spoke at a conference, that's something that you could add to your CV. Any awards, honors, if you're a part of a membership, again, a professional organization, those are all things to include on your CV. So typically people who are in academia or medicine typically use CVs as opposed to resumes in their field. And CVs also can include, as I mentioned, any relevant information from what's listed above to the position that you're wanting to apply for. So if anybody has any questions about, maybe you have a complete resume, but you've never written a CV, maybe you don't know what the format of a CV looks like, you can always reach out to one of us in career development. We'd be happy to work with you to develop your CV.
So it's time to apply. You want to make sure that you start working on those applications early so you will have enough time to review, revise, and perfect. You really want to make sure that you have your documents revised. So as Jessica mentioned, you can take your resume or your CV to get reviewed by one of the career counselors. You can take your personal statement as well and have it reviewed. And you can also get a professor to read it over and offer you feedback. Additionally, if you have an admission interview you need to get ready for, you can schedule a mock interview with career development to really practice those interviewing skills. You also want to make sure that before you submit anything, that you double check to make sure that everything is accurate. You also want to make sure that you're submitting your applications on time. And before each interview, you want to make sure that you're researching the particular program and school. You really want to you really want to make sure you know what their mission statement is and what they value as a university. And you also want to anticipate common questions and prepare your answers. You also want to review your personal statement and be prepared to talk about it if you have to complete an interview.
So making that decision. So think about what program is the best fit for you, considering the school's mission statement, their student culture, their location, what faculty are a part of the program, and how you felt if you had a campus visit. I would highly encourage that whatever schools you apply for, if you do get an offer of admission, please make sure, if you can, take a campus visit and just see how do you feel when you're at that location? Could you see yourself being a part of that graduate program? Other ways that you can kind of look at what their culture is, looking at the school's website, maybe their social media accounts, any articles that you find about them, and even maybe just interactions that you've had with their admissions department, right? It doesn't always just start once you're enrolled in the school, but all those people that you're interacting with prior to accepting an offer. That all kind of gives you a sense of, could you see yourself in that program? Okay, so that was our presentation on the preparation portion of graduate school. Um, Kind of the resources I just want to go over for career development. As we are nearing the end of the semester, just kind of wanting to let you guys know we are still here for you if you need us for individual appointments. We are doing appointments via Zoom still. So anything related to career counseling, internship opportunities, graduate school plans. So if you did want to continue maybe planning out different programs, if you're still maybe not sure what direction is right for me, should I go for a master's, a doctoral program, you can make an appointment with one of us and we can discuss that. Resume cover letter reviews, also CV reviews, exploring majors, careers, interviewing and networking skills, job search resources, any one of these on there. If you have any questions, we are still here for you guys. Okay, so now what I would like to do, I do want to open up the chat for any discussion questions you guys might have. I know our presentation covered more the preparation portion of graduate school. If there's any questions you guys had that are more specific, or if there was something that you thought we would cover that we didn't, please leave a question down in the chat. We'd be happy to answer it for you guys right now. Okay, we have one question. How many different programs should we apply to? Typically, that really just depends on what programs you are considering to apply to and the competitiveness of each program. I know in my own experiences when I was applying for graduate school, I believe I applied to, I think it was about 6 or 7 programs. So I mean, it depends on, the time you want to put into the applications, because again, you want to make sure that each one is specific. But I would estimate anywhere from like 5 to 7 applications, I think, is about average of what students will submit to different programs. But again, it's completely up to you. If you wanted to do more, you definitely could. And Elisa, I don't know if your experiences was any different. How many programs did you apply for? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with you. You definitely want to have a few different programs that you're applying to just as backup options, just in case your number one doesn't work out. And especially if you're really determined to completing your whatever degree it is right after your undergrad.
Are there any other questions anybody has? I know a lot of you are still in the process of considering graduate school, so
So we got another question. How can you find out if a program is competitive or not? I think in my experience, when I was researching the different universities, it would tell you roughly about how many students they allowed into the program. So that gives you an idea of how competitive it is. If they only accept 20 students and they get a certain, like 200 applications, that's a competitive program.
And also too, for competitiveness of programs, typically doctoral programs are going to be the ones that are more competitive. So you may see only maybe 5 to 6 candidates will actually get an offer of admission, right? Compared to master's programs, they do have more of the flexibility that they're able to accept more students because they do have larger classroom sizes. They're not paired up specifically with a faculty member to do research like a doctoral program. So that's also something to consider too, that when it comes to competitiveness, that doctoral programs will be more competitive. Okay, another question came in. Do we have information about GRE testing and COVID-19? That is a very good question. Unfortunately, I don't have any information about that right now. However, I'm sure right now if you go onto GRE's website, I can almost guarantee you they probably have something on there, a prompt on there about COVID-19, maybe any ideas of when they plan to recontinue testing. I'm pretty sure right now testing has been put on a hold, but I know GRE does offer several days throughout the month that the test is offered, but that could be something you could look on their website and see if they have more information on. Oh, awesome. Thank you, Elisa.
Yeah, I was just going to mention, I just posted the link with an update from their website about how they're handling things during the COVID-19.
Okay, we have another question from Alex. How many people does Roosevelt accept each semester into the master's program? I'm not quite sure how many they accept. As a frame of reference, I just know that my cohort has about, I want to say like 40, maybe 40 students in it that were all admitted when I admitted a few years ago. So again, it really depends on the program, but I know for my program in clinical psychology, it was about 40 we have in the cohort. Again, I don't know if that's how many they accept or just how many they decided to, but that's kind of like a frame of reference for a master's program. Okay, we have another question from Allison. What's your opinion on getting your bachelor's and master's from the same school? I'm actually a little bit biased in this, so I actually completed my last 2 years of my bachelor's degree here at Roosevelt, and then I decided to pursue my master's degree here. I've heard mixed things, honestly, about both. Some people say that it's good to get experiences from other faculty, from another program. Some have said that it doesn't matter if you're able to gain experiences through maybe different programs, different associations, depending on the work that you do. I think it really just comes down to personal preference, and sometimes it is those different factors you're considering, maybe resources that are going to have that deciding factor for you. So again, I really think it's just personal preference if you want to obtain your master's degree from where you got your bachelor's degree.
Just to add to that, I agree with you. My experience, for example, I did my undergrad in Wisconsin. And really the university that I had gone to for my undergrad did not offer the master's program that I wanted to do. So I, researched around the area, and that's how I came to Chicago.
You are welcome. And we have another question from Ernesto. I heard about the 4-1 degree program at Roosevelt where I can finish my master's degree in 1 year after graduating with my bachelor's degree. Can you elaborate if you have knowledge on this? I can't say that I do. That might be something that you'd want to talk with admissions about. I feel like I've heard something about that maybe with finance majors in the business school. That might be an option, but again, don't quote me, I'm not completely sure. That might be something that you'd want to inquire with admissions about to gain accurate information on that. Okay, another question. Does Roosevelt require GRE scores for masters? Again, it does depend on what program you're looking to apply for. I know for my program, the Master's in Clinical Psychology, they did not require GRE scores, but they did for the doctoral program. But I know there are some master's programs within Roosevelt that do require GRE scores. So the best way to look on that, if you go onto Roosevelt's website right now and look at the different majors in graduate school, you can pinpoint what program you'd be interested in, and right on there it'll show what admission requirements are, and you can see if they require scores or not. But that's a good question too, because sometimes it doesn't just depend on the school itself if they require the scores, it can be program dependent. So that's important to keep in mind too. Any other questions that are coming up? We still have plenty of time left. Okay, it doesn't look like anybody has any other questions. So we can wrap up here. I want to thank everybody for joining us today for our grad school preparation workshop. Again, with the circumstances going on, it's always appreciated that we still have our students who are willing to come to our workshops, log on for an hour with us, so that we can still continue giving you guys this information. If you guys do have any questions that come up after this workshop ends, or maybe in the next couple of days as this topic is on your mind, you can reach out to us either by email at career@roosevelt.edu. You can submit any questions there, or if you wanted to create an appointment, you can do that through the Navigate app on your phone as well, if you guys have any further questions.